All right, we're joined right now by Bob Newton. He's a missionary and a former LCMS district president, among many other things. And Bob, I want to ask you, as a nation that's hurting right now with recent violence, a school shooting in Minnesota at the Catholic school and church, and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So as Christians, what message do we need right now? And how can we better open our hearts and our minds to be able to hear that?
That's a good question. First, our hearts have to go out to these hurting people, huh? And their families. And I think it's important on Sunday mornings when we gather and worship to lift these folks up in prayer, not only for the victims, but also for the ones who are perpetrating the violence. And so just our approach is humility and grace 100%. To consider a world that is increasingly devoid, if you will, or young people devoid of just the values that came along with a Christian influenced culture. Let me step back one. It's not simply the violence. The violence is horrible in and of itself, but even the reaction of people in the media toward it. You mentioned Charlie Kirk. And what's breaking my heart, that's a terrible loss, and so many young people look to him for leadership. But if you're reading people's responses to it, some of those are terrible responses, the responses that you would never have seen in print or spoken publicly years ago. And now it just seems like everyone's fair game. So as I've said to folks, I did a seminar years on outreach community, and one of the members said to me, the world's just going haywire. It's going awful. And how do we reach out? And I shared with the brother, I said, I think the world is looking more and more like the world Jesus came to save. And he said, what do you mean? I says, he didn't come to a happy place. He didn't come to a world that wanted this. In fact, John chapter 1 said in two verses right there about our Lord coming, he says, first, the world was made by him. Even though the world was made by him, the world did not know him. So get that. He's a creator, and this world is not only doesn't know him, don't want to know him, all right? So that's real. But he came to that world. The next verse, he came to his own, and his own received him not. Even his own Jewish people, they didn't want him. So if we would accept that as a norm rather than an exception to the rule, that's number one. This world really doesn't want the gospel. It needs the gospel. It may not want the gospel. So as we posture ourselves as Christians vis-a-vis the world, we choose to engage the world that may not want the gospel, that's prone to every man for himself, in that way, shape, and form. So we deliberately choose to engage in the world like our Lord did, but with joy, with patience, and not and endurance, obviously, but with joy. It's so huge that we want to engage a broken world joyfully. And so that's what we teach and preach and model in our congregations, engaging in these places with an attitude, the Lord wants to be there, the Lord wants to bless, the Lord wants to draw people to himself, and so be courageous about it.